to Enlightenment of Change on webtalkradio.com. I'm your host, Connie Whitman. You know that my guest and I are happy that you're here this week. So as I hope you listen to the show, change, right? We hear that word change. Sometimes we choose it. Sometimes it's thrust upon us. And I get it. It could throw us into a tailspin. So part of that, I believe, is our ability to communicate effectively can ease the angst of change. So to help you on your journey of change, in the show notes, you'll find my communication style assessment. It's my gift to you. You will get 2 reports, and they're pretty clear. One will just spotlight your natural superpowers, and it's really how your message is perceived when you talk to others. Flip side, we have blind spots, and that lowest score, blind spot, if you will, you'll get a report on that as well. Sometimes I think that's even more valuable because it lets you know how people are perceiving your message that just don't communicate the way you do. So again, that link is in the show notes, my gift to you. Now, my quote today to set the stage for my conversation with my guest is by Joshua Marine, and Joshua says, "Changes are what makes life interesting. Overcoming them is what makes life meaningful." And I think I read an article or received an email. I don't remember where I saw it, but it was about mindset, motivation for career and just for personal growth as well as business growth. For me, this quote just really hit home because challenges really, really do make us stronger, more resilient, and they do keep life interesting, even though sometimes we don't always want the drama. And it can be really frustrating, but overcoming those challenges, man, that really does make life meaningful and I think exhilarating. So think of a new skill or a new idea that you've had recently. Doesn't your blood get pumped with a little bit of excitement thinking about creating or thinking that new thought? Change is everywhere. And I believe we show up during change is where the magic and adventure lies for all of us, right? So it's just showing up and being part of it and welcoming those challenges and changes into our life. Well, today, of course, I have an amazing expert. Her name is Beverly Jones. Beverly is an executive coach who helps leaders promote productivity and engagement and helps professionals thrive in their careers. Now, Bev writes and speaks about personal growth, teamwork, and well-being issues. Her most recent book, I'm going to hold it up, Find Your Happy at Work, is a handbook for creating more joy, meaning, and success in your career. Also, Bev has a podcast. It says Jazzed About Work, and it's on NPR and other major portals, again, where podcasts are playing. And I will make sure I put that in the show notes for everyone. So, Beverly, thanks for being on. I'm excited about our conversation. This is important stuff.
It's great to talk with you again. We always have a good time. And sometimes I'm surprised at how much I learn in a conversation with you. We talk about these things so many times, but you never stop learning.
Yeah. And I think that, but isn't that change, right? We have to constantly learn. And there was a quote I saw. It says we have to unlearn to relearn and then unlearn again to relearn again. But isn't that the truth?
It's a cycle.
Yeah, it really is. Now, let's talk about your book for a minute. So you talk a lot about mindset. I think it's important, but I'd like to ground the conversation. What does mindset mean? Or when you write about that, what's the essence of what you're talking about?
Let me give you a 2-part answer to that question.
Okay.
Because mindset's a word that's used sometimes in one way, sometimes in another way. On one level, people use the term mindset to just talk about really your attitude, the way you view life. And one of the things that is so important, there's so much research about it now, that having a positive attitude in your work, in your life, in any part of your life is transformative. When your mindset is positive, you're more likely to free up the creative part of your brain. You're more likely to be innovative, get along better with people. So choosing a positive approach to work and life is a really important mindset choice. But there's another aspect of mindset that is really important for career, and that's having a growth mindset. What that means is that you've been through tough times, maybe. You've had a career of ups and downs like all of us. And you learn that you can fix it if you have to. You can change if you have to. You learn that your brain has this marvelous ability to keep changing and growing and learning. And when you have a growth mindset during the tough times, when you're not feeling positive and awful things are happening and the world is a mess,
Yeah.
what a growth mindset says is, look, I've been through tough times before. I know how to learn. I may not know what my path is, but I know that I can find a path because I have that skill set and my brain will grow right along with whatever comes along. So, positive mindset and a growth mindset are really the kind of approach to managing your brain and diving into life that I think about a lot.
And it's true, and I could share when COVID hit, right? I had done. I'm old school, Beverly, so I had done everything live. I spoke live, I networked live, I trained live, I met my clients live. There was no Zoom or digital. And then all of a sudden, the world stopped, and all my clients, the same day, March 23rd, 2020, I got all these emails saying, "Okay, we have to pause everything." And my husband's company closed, not because of COVID. We knew that they were closing, so all of a sudden in March, we had no income. And so a couple of things, my finance background, Beverly, I always say, make sure you have money for a rainy day. Thank God we did. That was number one. But number two, we ran out of our savings because with COVID, it took
Yeah.
quite a long time for everything to come back. So I remember when I got those emails, I went up to my husband and I was like, oh, what are we going to do? I know we're okay for a few months, but we remember when COVID first hit, we didn't know how long it was. It was a big unknown of how long is this going to last. And I did exactly what you said. I said to my husband, I was sick for a day. I allowed myself to be depressed for 24 hours. That's my rule.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
it's like, all right, pull up your big girl pants and you got to figure it out. So I remember I came down and I just started exploring networking groups that I can join digitally because I had done everything live and just started to peel back that onion. And what do you think happens as you become curious and look for your own personal growth, those opportunities, those networking? I met people like you with zero effort because I was putting myself out there in a relevant way of let me get in this digital space and see what's going on and learn. I went into growth mindset. So for me, maybe it's intuitive. Everybody doesn't think that way. But life throws us curveball. I guarantee everybody listening today, Beverly, they probably have, just like I had my go-to of what don't you know? That's where you need to start, grow and learn. And I bet other people have the same thing. We don't stop to think about it until there's devastation in our life or a change that really flips us upside down, right?
Absolutely. And I think, of course, COVID was terrible, horrible, never want to go through it again.
Amen.
But for many people, it was transformative in a positive way
Agree.
because they figured it out. They did things they never thought they could do. They developed new skills. They collaborated. I was fortunate in that my client base includes a lot of federal agencies. So those, of course, kept going on. People went home and everybody was figuring out at the same time. And I was so impressed by what was happening. These people were compassionate. They were compassionate for each other. They were compassionate for the people they served. They were compassionate in a very real way, meaning, if your colleague has three little kids at home and no daycare, all of a sudden, people were just saying, oh, look, you just work these few hours and I'm going to fill in. And it was a wonderful growing experience. And I have some clients I had before COVID, still have them now after we've been through that together.
Yeah.
And I'm just so impressed by how middle-aged and older people have had these huge professional leaps because they were forced to reinvent something, do things in a new way, and they made the curve very quickly.
I think when change happens, again, whether we choose it or not, it just propels us forward. We're resilient. Humans are resilient, and we really do have the propensity to figure it out, if you will. So I agree. I think change sometimes forces us. We're not always like, wait a minute, welcome this, but it forces us into that growth mode and that learning mode. And I think it's important. The other thing too, I think I agree with COVID was transformational, but I think COVID also taught us Keep growing, keep learning, keep
Yeah.
understanding. Like the AI is a big thing now. And, somebody my age that's not comfortable. I have to understand that I have to ask questions. I have to investigate it, but that's the growth mindset. I am curious to learn. And I think if we're curious, we can hit whatever that challenge or that new event, right? That change, we could hit it head on because it puts us in a position of power versus I can't do this. It's like, hey, I'm curious. Let me figure it out. Just a little bit of a shift there, right?
Yes. And I think you put your finger on something that is really important, and that's the learning process. The knowing that you can learn, that you just have to figure out how to get started. Learning is a very positive experience, and your whole being changes when you're in learning mode. As you were saying earlier, it's fun. It's fun to find something new. Your body chemistry responds like it does with good news. It's like you've just gotten a little gift of energy when you learn something. And I think no matter where you are in life, and certainly there are times where things are difficult and all kinds of things may be going on in your life. And if you don't know what to do, kind of a go-to thing is like give yourself, be a little gentle, give yourself a day or so like you did, or maybe it's longer depending on what's happening.
Well, the
But
severity.
yeah, start a learning plan. And it doesn't have to be huge, just beginning a new study of something, just recognizing what the barrier is. You can't do X because you don't know Y. Well, start learning Y. And if you do it a little bit at a time, if you're having trouble getting started, small amounts of learning will build momentum, because as you start to get a new concept or a new idea or a new source of knowledge, it's energizing and it'll pick up. So don't worry about learning everything in a minute. Just learn about getting started and getting a cadence of learning. And that's a tremendous way to organize and manage your change and kind of thrive through change.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. You have to give yourself some grace because you can't learn whatever this new thing is, right? Fill in the blank, depending on what the situation is that's unfolding. It takes us time because we're human and we have to process things and learn things and practice things. It takes time. And I think we're rough on ourselves. Like, I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not fast enough. I'm never going to learn this. Sure, you will. Just give yourself
Yeah.
a little bit of grace, right? Be kind to yourself.
Yeah, you have to catch yourself. You kind of listen to that voice in your head, which is probably like an old tape, kind of like an old um, line that you
Yes.
fed to yourself when you were in high school and you couldn't do math, or something like that. It's not real anymore. It's just an echo of old situations, and just say just talk back to that gremlin who's saying that, and say, I've learned all of these things. I'm good at learning. I know I can learn. Um, I may not know it now, but I'm on the path, and that's all that matters.
That's all that matters. God gave us brains, gave humans
Good
brains.
ones.
So, right, thank goodness. So we should be able to figure it out. But you have to pace yourself, right? Again, you got to give yourself some grace and love and kindness and all of those things because that negative record player all have, and it's all loud. Turn down the volume, everybody. Turn down the volume.
Yeah.
I have another question. A lot of people are complaining that they're burned out because they're working just so hard, short staffing, whatever it is. Is that what you're also seeing? And then if yes, what are some of the strategies you use when you're coaching your teams and folks that you work with?
I think a lot of people are saying that they feel burned out, or their colleagues are burned out, or their teams are disengaged because they're burned out. It's become a phrase that is losing its meaning a little bit because people are using it for so many kinds of unease in the workplace. When the term initially was, you could be doing great work, but you could only do it for so long. You can't work around the clock. You can't work day after day, even if you love your job. If you don't take breaks, if you don't take vacations, um, you cease to be effective, and that's burnout. And Americans do suffer from it more than I think any other part of the world of workers. That's because we take less time off. We have fewer vacation hours than any country around. We're not good at taking breaks. So there is an element of burnout that's always part of the American workplace. But I think there's some other things going on. I think um, the diagnosis of burnout is kind of blames it on the job. And lots of times it's more nuanced than that. People after a very difficult time are kind of exhausted. And it's not just because of the job. It's because of the anxiety. It's because of the worrying. It's because worrying, can I pay the rent in COVID? All of those kind of things. Mm-hmm. So I focus a lot on well-being. You can't feel great at work and energetic if you aren't taking care of yourself, if you're not exercising, if you're not giving yourself space to spend time with other people, if you don't have some kind of spiritual practice, and doesn't have to be religion, it could be going for long walks in the woods. I mean, you have to have all of those things in a balanced life. And when you start feeling like you're just not functioning, you're exhausted. With my clients, I always look at the whole picture. It's not necessarily about the job, although because we tend to measure ourselves at work, sometimes we notice the problems at work before we realize, gee, all I'm doing is kind of sitting around and watching TV on the weekend. You don't sometimes notice that. So often it's not taking care of yourself in another realm. But there's another thing that I want to mention. I think a lot of people, when they say they burned out, I mean, they're disengaged, they don't want to get up, they're not having fun, they just dread Monday. Sometimes that is what really is happening is boredom. And I've seen that with some of my long-term clients who had jobs where they had to do a fast turnaround. They had to really rise to the occasion with COVID. It was kind of exciting. They had people to take care of. There was, they really were sort of energized. And now everything seems flat. They haven't kind of adjusted, and they haven't realized that boredom isn't your boss's fault. It's not all about the job. That's mindset. That's where you have to take some steps sometimes. And I think what I say to my clients is when they start describing boredom, that it's a natural kind of message from yourself, that it's a lot like thirst. If you're thinking, oh, I'm really thirsty, you take action. You go get a glass of water. If you're thinking, I'm really bored, that's your unconscious saying, do something. Boredom, the way to get rid of boredom is always do something. That's always better than doing nothing about it.
It's interesting as you were talking about that with when COVID hit, because I had to learn so much that, I mean, and it was funny. I remember the first week I was just working 12-hour days. I'm a doer. So that's, I don't, I think people think I'm crazy, but that was, I couldn't stop myself. Yeah. And so a couple of things started happening. I was going up to my husband and saying at the end of the day, I can't believe I've been in business at the time, 19 years. How did I succeed? Because I don't know anything. So I started getting down on myself because I felt that learning curve was so substantial, because it was all of this electronic digital tech, which was not my strength. Right. So you have to overcome that. The other thing, because you're going to pull up your big girl pants, sit down and figure it the freak out right now, today. This is it. I don't care how long, this is the self-talk I do, which is abusive, by the way. Don't do that. I don't recommend
it. You can say that a little more positively.
Yeah, exactly. But it was very good, because I have a wonderful spouse who he would come down and say, you have not come up. I heard you go to the bathroom once. And he'd literally shut my computer and say, you're coming up, or we're going for a walk, or we don't live far from a Bay Beach, where we could see the Manhattan skyline. And so let's go for a walk when it got nicer out. And he pulled me away. So I had a lifeline, which I was very lucky for. And the irony would be, he'd say, come on, we're going to go to a movie, or we're going to go for a walk, or, you know what, I have to go to Costco. Come with me. You need to get out of the house. And we'd go out, whatever it was, whatever the task was. And we'd be driving, and I'd look at him and I go, oh, I really needed this. He's like, I know. So if you have someone that can pull you out of the insanity of I have to do, or I don't know what to do, talk to people, rely on people, seek support, because we want to help each other, right? That's the human way. But who is in it that's in your orbit that can help you find your North Star, if you will, and stay grounded? Because you can't do what I was doing and sustain that long, because it's a little bit insane. A little bit insane.
One of the things that I did see happening in COVID, when all of a sudden organizations were working remotely, and they're still trying to make it up, but everybody was alone, is that people supported one another during that and got to know their colleagues, even in organizations where that wasn't the norm, where there wasn't a lot of teamwork and supporting one another, because they had to. I mean, I think people recognize their isolation. And my husband and I have a farmhouse in the country, 80 miles away from Washington, D.C. And we really have not been going back to Washington much at all. And this is home now. But we were in the country with not many people around. And what happened with us, we had 2 dogs. So we were walking, and other people were walking. We got to know neighbors that we hadn't known very well, because everybody was out with their dogs.
Lovely.
So it's knowing that there are always other people who are probably even lonelier or bored, or more bored, or whatever it is, than you, and reaching out to help other people. If you don't see anybody who you think can help you, help somebody else, and then all of a sudden you'll see, oh, it works both ways.
I love it. And the more we give, the more we get, Bev, right? So it
Absolutely.
it really feels good. I call that the ripple effect. Like we were forced to stay in. You went to the farmhouse, you were walking your dogs more, and all of a sudden we're meeting people. There's always a beautiful ripple effect, but you have to move to create a ripple, right, if you will.
Like I said, it's always better to do something than to do nothing. It doesn't matter if you do something that feels like the wrong thing at the beginning. You're still going to learn from it. It's still action. It still gets your brain kind of thinking and exploring it. If you don't know what to do, just do something. Doesn't matter what. Just get started.
Yeah. Read a book that you haven't wanted to read, that, you haven't had time to read. Sometimes just from that, it can spur the creativity of our brain. It's just charging our brain up, right? We are a computer. Our brain is a computer. It needs charging every once in a while. Next question, Bev, communication. I started the show, talking about my communication style assessment. Everything we do, we're always communicating with, right? A boss, a colleague, a client, our family, whatever it is. And communication, or communicating, it's a challenge. And I think in the workplace, because now we're hypersensitive, that we don't want to say something that could be perceived in the wrong way. We see it all in the media and around the world, right? And I think it's just harder than it's ever been. Are you seeing this with your clients? And what are some of the strategies, if you will, to be able to get more confidence with how we're communicating?
Well, again, 2-part answer, because I got 2 different things that I've been thinking about.
I love it.
One is what I'm seeing is communication overload. That people are driving themselves crazy with too many hours on Zoom or whatever. We're on Zoom right now. I love Zoom. It's wonderful. We can have a conversation and do all kinds of things, but people are spending long hours, too much time. And they're kind of forced into it by their job sometimes. But so just acknowledging that you just want to go home and sit in a quiet room is important. recognizing when communication overload is part of the problem, and you get this email message, say, that really upsets you, and it's not really that message, it's the 20th message complaining that you saw today and you can't take anymore. So the first step of dealing with this situation we're in is to notice it. I think that we're in the middle of a school of fish. We're a fish, we're swimming in the water, and we don't know it's water because we just know it's swimming, and the water's all around it and it's invisible. Yeah. We're swimming in communication.
Yeah.
It's bombarding us. So that's one thing. Just be aware of communication overload and try to take care of yourself. Give yourself some quiet time if you need it. The other thing that I'm seeing in different organizations is that the generations are clashing in a way that has never happened in the history of human civilization. If you read, novels from the 19th century, people say the same kind of things we're hearing. Oh, these kids, they don't work hard, they don't have any work ethic, they're no good, or these old people, they're useless, they're so slow. So that is the same with every generation. But there are 5 generations in the workplace now.
Yeah.
It's never happened before.
Yeah.
But what's really different is that the younger generations grew up learning how to communicate in ways that are totally foreign to what the older people did. So boomers like me learn to talk face to face. You learned, if you're going to an office or any other workplace, you learn to shake hands and look people in the eye. You learn to write notes by hand as a way to show thanks. All kinds of things that aren't part of the culture for a lot of people. What we didn't learn is about social media and we didn't know about video and things like that. Yeah. The Gen Zs have a totally different skill set. And so what I'm seeing are conflicts that are really, it's like people talking 2 different languages. Yes. They're just not connecting. And I think part of the answer I'm kind of intrigued by is that maybe it's a time for reciprocal mentoring.
Love it.
What I'm reading and hearing from my clients is that Gen Z is surprising, and that these young people want to be at work. They want to be dealing with people. They want to be mentored. They want to be taught. They want to have their just been through COVID and have felt left out. What they want is what the boomers know how to give, because that's what we learned how to do. So I'm really intrigued with the idea that whether it's in families or organizations or communities, and I see it I do a lot of nonprofit work, and I see it in some community organizations. If you have, it doesn't have to be formal mentoring, but if you have young people and older people making a conscious effort to work together and help each other, I think that's can help with some of the communication overload, because you're both going to build your skill set and you're both going to pause and actually listen to somebody who's not like you.
And I think it's beautiful. And it's funny, reverse mentoring. I say that all the time, because obviously when I'm training my corporate clients, they have new college graduates or new high school graduates coming in to do the work. And so, I'm at the tail end of the baby boomer, but we're, 5 generations apart. It's substantial. Yeah. And it's fascinating to me, because what I find is these younger people will come to me and say, Con, I have this situation. Hey, Con, what do you think I should do? I think because, Beverly, I don't judge, and I really listen to understand. Yeah. And I ask questions because I'm curious. Before I say anything, I always say, I'm going to have some questions for you. And then once I understand, then I could share my ideas with you, and you see what feels comfortable. So you see, it's not a judgment that I'm coming, like, I know better because I'm older than you and I've lived life. It's never about that, because their situation with the technology and stuff, I didn't grow up with that. So I have to be curious to understand. And then the flip side, I say to them, okay, now I helped you. Here's the deal. If you see a book or you see an app or there's a podcast that you listen to, and I'm all about time management. I'm all about communication. If there's or fun, right? I don't have enough fun because I'm always working. So if there's something fun that you think, oh, this is right up Connie's alley, you email me or you LinkedIn message me and say, Con, I found an app for you. I said, but here's the deal. Then you have to teach me how to use the app. And they laugh because I'm open to their zone of genius and letting them know, but then I'm going to need your help to learn how to do that. And you know what I find, Beverly, the younger gen, they feel empowered and they're like, really? You want my help? And I'm like, yeah, this is your zone of genius. It's not my zone of genius. And it builds their confidence along the way. Plus all of my experience, right? I can help them strategize how to talk to a boss or strategize how to talk to a client or build their confidence related to sales skills, whatever it is, right? But I call it reverse mentoring. It's just funny that you said that too. And I think if both the span of the generations embrace each other, holy moly, think about what we could get done in the marketplace. Because now we have this really dynamic drive forward of collaboration and partnership where we're leveraging each other's talents and skills. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
And I want to reemphasize a word you used. Non-judgmental listening is the key. I tell my clients, listening can be your superpower. And by listening, I don't mean just, not talking. I mean, putting aside that all the things in your head that are planning or defensing or what am I trying to say? Being defensive, those kind of things.
Yeah.
Put all those aside and simply listen to the other people. If you're the boomer, just listen to the Gen Z and ask questions and try to understand and make no judgment. Listening to another person is a gift because we all need to be listened to, but it's also a tremendous way to connect and to learn. So being non-judgmental and open to simply listening and hearing what the other person has to say, that's a huge part of creating better communication flows.
It's curiosity. We have to be curious in the other person, their situation, their level of understanding, whatever the concept is, so that then we can help them. But you have to be curious to understand where people are. And that's the other thing too. I think that we talk over each other or talk at each other versus talking with each other. So if we can, for me, it's all about the questions, right? It's that's your magic wand in sales, but I think that's our magic wand in life. The better questions we can ask, the more detailed our conversation becomes. That curiosity becomes exponential. And now the judgment diminishes because we're truly understanding that person and why they feel the way they feel or say the way they're saying. And the other thing I think is hard because of the media. I don't care what side you are politically, the media, they're so polarized that we think our opinion is the right opinion. And I say, well, you have different filters than I have. So maybe if we put our two heads together, we're really going to come up with what the secret sauce is, because we're exploring or expanding that perspective. But we're all learning to be very single-minded. And that, I think, is going to be a big detriment from our age group and then all the way down the young kids. Your way is not the best way, right? Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But if we can collaborate and explore and non-judge, I think we could get more done. So this polarization, this single focus thought, dangerous. I think it's very dangerous.
Yeah, and aside from politics, it's dangerous in your career. It's dangerous in the workplace. Yeah. You need non-biased information in order to understand what's going on in your industry and in your immediate team. And that means finding good sources of information and being open to hearing things that you don't want to hear.
Yeah. That's how we learn and grow, though. That's the reality of it, right? The more we don't know, the wiser we become. So it's interesting. We're out of time. Everyone, listen, I'm sure that you are curious, not only the book, right? It's Find Your Happy at Work, 50 Ways to Get Unstuck, Move Past Boredom, and Discover Fulfillment. Sign me up. Everybody should be reading this. All generations should be reading the book. But go to Beverly's website, which is clear Let me make sure I get this right. Clearways, plural, consulting.com. If you have a question specific for Beverly, email her at coach@clearwaysconsulting.com. And another cool thing, I was on your podcast and I'm going to be on your podcast again.
Yeah, again. Right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. For a second time, Jazzed About Work. Check it out. It's on all the podcasts. It's on NPR. So you'll see it's an npr.org. And then it's Jazzed About Work is the name of the podcast. I will put that in the show notes as well, guys. A great resource for you to just see what's going on in Beverly's world and how she's helping her clients again, get out of boredom, man, and live just a fuller life, both personally and professionally. It's all about the growth. So anything else, Beverly, before we say see you later, alligator?
I just want to thank you. It's always fun to talk with you. Thank you for mentioning the book and the podcast. And you're going to be on the podcast soon. So we'll be able to continue our conversation. I want to talk some more about communication with you because I know you know a lot about that.
It's my jam. It's the core of sales is communication, right? It's my jam. Truly, thank you again, my friend, for being on. And you're just doing so many great things out there. And the book is amazing. And I'm just so honored that you were able to come on the show. So thanks for sharing your zone of genius with everybody.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Yes, thanks again. And I hope you will join me weekly as we question, build, and discover together, no matter where you are on your journey of change. And yes, my guests and I know it's hard. We get it. But I truly hope that the show, my guests, our tips, our strategies, our ideas, you get those aha moments of, that's the next thing I need to try. Here's the deal. I say at the end of the show, every show, Beverly, they're all sick of it, but I have to say it anyway. Information's a beautiful thing. If you do nothing with it, it's simply information. Take one tip that Beverly asked, read the book, listen to her podcast, whatever it is for you, one little thing. Put it into action. I promise you the reaction, that ripple effect we talked a little bit about during the show, that ripple effect will create magic at the back end of your life. I promise you it works. It's like it's the secret sauce, but you have to take action. Yeah. So again, thank you for joining me. You've been listening to Enlightenment of Change with me, your host, Connie Whitman on webtalkradio.com. I am truly honored to have you on this journey of change with me. And I really do hope that my guests and I provide some relevant ideas for you to implement in your life, both personally and professionally. I love you all. I am really honored that you join me every week. And I promise we'll see you next week with another great show. Love you, everybody. Have a great one.